Originally released for the PlayStation in 1998 to 2000, Star Ocean: The Second Story was a Japanese RPG and, as the name implies, the second game in its series, with the first game being on the Super Famicom in Japan only in 1996. Star Ocean: The Second Story was considered a success during its original release, and the game has attracted a cult following. The game also resulted in an anime series, Star Ocean EX, and a manga series which covered about half of the game's story, drama CDs which fill in the remainder of the story not covered by the anime and manga, a spin-off sequel on the Game Boy Color called Star Ocean Blue Sphere in Japan only, which got a mobile phone remake in 2009, again in Japan only, an enhanced port for the PSP known as Star Ocean Second Evolution, which retranslated the game, had a whole new voice cast with some scenes now being fully voiced, a new character, and an overhaul of the gameplay mechanics. This enhanced port got a re-release for the PlayStation 3, 4 and Vita in Japan only, with further enhanced graphics, music, trophy support and DLC items. A manga based on Second Evolution was also released. And finally, we come to today with a remake of this classic JRPG known as Star Ocean: The Second Story R. Going forward, I'll generally refer to the games as Star Ocean 2, specifying versions when needed. There will be late game footage shown, though this will be mostly out of context as to not spoil crucial story elements. In Star Ocean 2 you can choose between two characters, Claude C. Kenny, an ensign for the Pan-Galactic Federation based on Earth and the son of Ronix J. Kenny, the admiral of the Federation ship Kaunis, as well as one of the heroes from the first Star Ocean game, or you can play as Rena Lanford, a teenage girl living on the planet Expel, which has been plagued by the Sorcery Globe, a strange meteor which has crashed on the planet, making creatures on the planet violent and even mutating them. Rena hopes that one day the Hero of Light would appear to save them all from the Sorcery Globe. One day, while going through the Sacred Forest, Rena goes further in than she normally would when Claude suddenly appears in the forest, having been transported by accidentally activating a device on a planet that he, his father and their crew were investigating. Rena is shortly attacked by a monster, forcing Claude to protect her using a phase gun given to him by his father to defend himself, thus breaking the UP3, or the Underdeveloped Planet Preservation Pact, which protects technologically undeveloped planets from being exposed to future technology too early, something that Claude's parents had also broken in the past. Rena sees the burst of light from the weapon and brings Claude back to the village of Alia while believing that Claude is the Hero of Light. This encounter would be the start of a grand adventure as the two work together to investigate the Sorcery Globe, meeting and joining up with numerous allies along the way. But is this game any good? Find out in The Good. The game's story and characters are certainly one of its strongest points, and who you choose as your main character will make some impact on not just parts of the story, but even the characters that can join your party. For the review, I opted to go with Claude's story. The game's private action system, which I'll describe in more detail later on, will give you some more insight into these characters and their lives, opinions and habits, as well as influencing how much your characters like each other, and depending on who likes who, will contribute towards the 99 possible endings the game has. As Claude and Rena explore the planet of Expel to investigate the Sorcery Globe, they will find themselves tangled up in the affairs of its inhabitants, and some of these inhabitants can join Claude or Rena's party. Claude and Rena have one party member exclusive to their story, and other characters you can recruit at the expense of not being able to recruit others. For example, recruiting Ashton will lock out Opera in earnest. You cannot recruit everyone in one playthrough, but it does add to the replayability of the game as you experiment with different teams while working towards those endings. All of the characters have also gotten upgraded portraits which look great compared to what I felt was a more generic art style used for Second Evolution. And you can even use the original portraits from the PlayStation release, which is a nice nod to it. The game's story flows very well, and while I found the starting section in Alia quite slow, the game soon picks up once Claude and Rena are able to fully explore the world, and it really kicks into gear once they travel for the Liqueur continent, and without spoiling too much, again when the second half of the game starts. Again, I won't spoil the story as I feel it needs to be experienced, but Star Ocean 2's story, in my opinion, is the highest point of the series, only recently being challenged by Star Ocean: The Divine Force, which took the element of selecting who the main character and having it affect the story from this game, as well as a party member unique to who you had picked. The gameplay of Star Ocean 2R has had some quality of life changes, and this has worked very well for it. Enemies are now visible on the map, and you can initiate a surprise attack by approaching them from behind. The enemy can do the same against you if they approach from the back as well. The battle system has been refined by adding a counter system where if you dodge an enemy attack, you can counterattack. This is a risk or reward move, as successfully counterattacking will damage an enemy's shield, which acts as a stun bar for them, and failing will stun you, which not only leaves you open to critical hits, but will also destroy another addition to the remake, the bonus gauge. Formations in the game now grant passive effects, and these effects can be enhanced by collecting orbs dropped from attacking and defeating enemies to build the bonus gauge. Spells and abilities have been refined, with more powerful spells getting updated attack animations, which you can skip if it's taken too long, and most other spells no longer pause battle to play out an animation. Some skills will freeze an enemy in place so that the attack will hit, notable example being Ashton's deadly triangle attack, and skills/spells can now be upgraded with skill points earned at the end of battle and upon leveling up and fulfilling challenges, instead of the old mastery system where they were upgraded when used over and over. Some skills can only be learned if you have certain characters in the party and activate a private action between the two, and a character's certain skill that you lose access to early in the game can be regained later and even upgraded. The game also introduces assault actions, where characters can be assigned to a button to be summoned for an attack in battle. The main characters from the other Star Ocean games can be summoned this way as cameo appearances. The game also introduces raid battles, which double as super bosses in the game. These enemies can be found on the overworld as a red coloured enemy, and you need to be well prepared in order to take all of them down. If enemies are close together on the map, you may start a chain battle where you fight these groups one after another for more experience. A staple of the series, private actions return and can be activated in towns instead of outside them. This will allow the party to split up, and you can talk to them or activate special scenes with them that will affect their relationship with your main character or each other. The game will now tell you where private actions will take place, and even if it's a time limited one, which saves a lot of frustration from the original. The game will also allow you to fast travel to locations you have been to, which also cuts down a lot of the travelling time. Another staple of the series is item creation, and this was one of the things that drew me into the series to begin with. Characters can learn specialty skills and unlock talents by using said skills to create or obtain items, such as compounding to make medicines and support items, alchemy to make materials, crafting and blacksmithing to make weapons and armour from said materials, to replication if you want to copy things, pickpocket to steal from people, and summoning familiars that can help you outside towns by buying supplies for you or exploring the world. The game gives you a lot of freedom, and the pickpocketing skill, for example, will let you steal from literally almost everyone in the game, even your party members, multiple times from when you split up in towns for private actions. In this remake, you can even choose up to 3 items to steal and know the likelihood of succeeding, instead of only being able to steal 1 item in the original. Not only that, if you fail, you can use another item to reset your chances until you've stolen successfully. While this can have a repercussion on how everyone in your party feels towards the character that's stealing, you can negate this with a certain item that you can cook. Upgrading everyone's specialty skills will also unlock super specialties, which involve the whole party working together to make things. Item creation, if you invest the time, money and effort, can reward you by giving you powerful gear, such as making Claude one of the most powerful swords in the game reasonably early, to outright breaking it by selling things for absurd amounts of money, or reducing the skill point requirements for certain skills to 1 for your next upgrade, for example. Writing books affect how much a character likes you, and you can use this to manipulate the affections of characters, allowing you to pair them up. The game also introduces new specialties such as fishing and bodyguard, the latter I'll talk about again later. There's also little things like giving the characters idle animations, having them randomly talk as you explore, and getting an idea on what to do next whenever you enter the menu, and these little things really breathes new life into the game. The visuals and music have also received an overhaul, and while the characters remain as 2D sprites, the environment has received a massive upgrade by being based off 3D models instead of pre-rendered backgrounds. Think the HD 2D style popularised by games such as Octopath Traveler. The game also uses dynamic lighting, which helps the character sprites blend into the backgrounds better. The visual style was a treat for the eyes, and it was great revisiting locations from the game in this new style. The game's music was once again handled by its original composer, Motoi Sakuraba, and he rearranged the music from the game, and he certainly hasn't skipped a beat because the arranged music sounds great, though if you prefer the original soundtrack, you can switch between them. The battle theme, Stab the Sword of Justice, is easily my favourite battle theme in any JRPG, and the rearranged track certainly does it justice. I am absolutely okay listening to that theme whenever I enter battle, and sometimes I intentionally drag battles on so I can listen to it. Now, while Star Ocean 2 is my favourite JRPG, this does not absolve it or make it immune to issues, so let's talk about what didn't work in the bad. One of the things I skirted around when talking about the visuals and music getting an overhaul were voices. You can select between the English voice dub from Second Evolution, which I thought was absolutely fine and didn't have any issues with, to the Japanese dub of Second Evolution, and re-recorded voices for 2R by the original Japanese cast of the PlayStation version. If you opt to go with the Japanese voices, you can even mix and match character voices, so you might have some characters use their Second Evolution voices or their 2R voices. What you don't have access to is the original English voices from the PlayStation original. And while some people may think that that's fine since the original English voices aren't exactly a masterpiece,
the enemy!
Better be careful.
Ha! Da! Ta! Ha! Air slash!
Heal! No! I don't want to die!
Ha! We have a full score with this!
for having so many options to switch between different versions of Star Ocean 2, it just feels weird that it's the only thing from the original that never got carried across. You can't say lack of cutscene voices is an excuse either, given that you can disable voices altogether. I think the game has been made considerably easier given the amount of experience points enemies and bosses give out, and now all members of the party will gain experience, with reserve members earning slightly less than active members. Contributing to this are formations that promote experience boosts, chain battling, and items you can cook, or create using art and copy with replication to boost experience gain. The specialty train will also boost experience at the cost of reduced stats, and the effort skill which levels up train will reduce the amount of experience needed to level up. One of the new super specialties introduced to the game is called Bodyguard, and this will allow the members of your party to wander off and automatically beat weaker enemies, gaining experience, money and items in the process. You can also discover and react to landmarks which, you guessed it, will also give you experience. While you can increase the game's difficulty at any time and disable a lot of the specialties that promote experience gain or use other formations, these have to be self-imposed as opposed to being disabled on higher difficulties. While I understand that this makes it more accessible, it also removes a lot of the challenge of the game and even the post-game content such as the Maze of Tribulations, which now requires you to beat the final boss to access, as opposed to just reaching the final save point in previous versions. Other than that, I can't really complain about much else, so let's wrap things up with the opinion. This is a personal bias of mine, but I'll take back what I said in the Star Ocean The Divine Force review about improving on perfection. This remake has certainly exceeded my expectations in just about every way possible, and while I did have some issues with difficulty and lack of the original English PlayStation voices, in all fairness that was me grasping for straws. I really did like the story, gameplay, its quality of life changes and the updated visuals and rearranged music, and that was more than enough to make up for those minor issues. Star Ocean 2 has been my favourite JRPG ever since I played it on the PlayStation, and with this remake that definitely hasn't changed, and this game is the definitive version to play. Playing the first Star Ocean is not required to enjoy this game, though it does give you more context about Claude's parents, and some of the characters and music from this game are referenced to in other games in the series. If you enjoy JRPGs, then I cannot recommend this game enough. So with that, it's time for my rating. I would give Star Ocean, the second story R, Ashton's obsession with barrels out of 10. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next Infinite Backlog review. If you enjoyed today's review, feel free to check out some of our other videos and subscribe for more. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram and our Facebook page. Once again, thank you for watching.